We'd love to know your thoughts on what the pandemic means for renters and for evictions, and how you think about housing within this whole mix of how the economy functions.
Housing, there's so many dimensions to housing, like where do you want to live and does that change versus, let's say, rent versus own? If that's changing, rent, it's easier to move than owning, and maybe one might think the flexibility of that is a consideration. There is the issue of financially, what is better to do? There's the dimension of how do you have a better lifestyle? How do you have roots? There's part of it, like, do you want to own an asset now? Like, I think, generally speaking, it's better to own assets. And I include then, assets, meaning I think we're in an environment where there's going to need to be a lot of debt creation of the sort that we have seen, because that's where the checks come from. And there's going to need to be more printing of money by central banks to buy that debt. And that might have a financial impact on the house. So that there are so many things that go through my mind along those. Each one of those, I could sort of delve into, but I probably would spend too much time. But it's all of those considerations, I think, that enter into one when one thinks about owning a house or renting a house.
But in general, you're pro ownership, it sounds like, no matter what's going on in the macro.
Well, no, I am if about the bias. However, we're in an environment where flexibility, the ability to change one's mind and adapt, is important. So if you have uncertainties, I would, give that consideration. If it was normal times in a normal place, I think home ownership is a terrific thing because it's like a forced savings, and it allows you to build it and make it what you want. And it also is your environment. You get to choose the environment that you want to raise your family in or that you want to be in. And so all of that is almost supersedes other things in terms of it being a choice. So I love home ownership as a general vehicle, but then there are those other considerations.
All right, I got to ask you about a question. You made headlines recently by weighing in on Bitcoin, which you called a hell of an invention. Would you give us some of your thoughts on how you see Bitcoin, where it's useful, and I know you've been getting a lot of feedback from huge fans of Bitcoin and people who are very anti-Bitcoin. So where are you now?
So the reason I wrote it on LinkedIn was so that people could see it in my own words. Because what I find is that people who are pro Bitcoin grab the certain sentences, and that people who are anti Bitcoin grab the other sentences. And Ray Dalio is supporting Bitcoin, or it says it's a hell of an invention, and it is a hell of an invention. Wow, think about how great it was. And then others who basically. There's sort of the concluding part of it also that it could go down, it could be outlawed, it can be, there are a number of things that are real concerns, and it also can be go down 80% or something like that, or could be even more, and it's an option on a number of uncertainty things. Those are what's brought out by those who don't like Bitcoin. So life is not so simple. And when I, you like it and that. So I tried to be clear in what it is. And I don't even consider myself a particular expert on Bitcoin. I mean, I have to understand it because of the business I'm in. But anyway, I would encourage people who are interested in that to take a look at my broader assessment. And I think it's like in 2 pages or 3 pages, so it's not long.
But your take is, in general, you wouldn't mind putting money into it as long as you are okay losing 80% of that. Is that right?
Yeah. Let me give you the big picture.
Yeah.
Okay. I worry that we are in an environment in which there's the classic creation of debt and the creation of money. And that if you look at history, there are real assets and there are financial assets. And the way it works is real assets are the things you buy. You buy things you want to use. Your car, your house, your video streaming systems, somebody who helps you do something, all those things. Those are things you're using. And those are, it's the tangible stuff pretty much. And then there is financial wealth. And people confuse financial wealth. Financial wealth is holding instruments or financial assets for the purpose of one day selling those financial assets to buy the things you want to buy. And there's a cycle. And the way the cycle works is there's an increase. This cycle, by the way, has happened throughout time. There's an increase in financial assets relative to real assets that gives buying power, and everybody likes it. It was actually pretty much discovered in varying degrees. It goes back in history, the debt cycles and everything for forever, for thousands of years. But let's say if you take 1700s or so, there was the discovery of that you could actually pay people with promises to deliver money and that has not been earned.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now let's continue.
So imagine that, the Dutch really, and before them others, but the French to some extent, came up with the idea of a company. And what a company gives you, or even what you get in debt, is the promise that when they someday earn a profit, they will someday give you a share of that profit, or the bond is operating that. So you build up financial assets that are large relative to tangible assets, the real assets. And the cycle is that if people want to get their they think they've got value in those things that are going up. And but what happens is there are too many of them. And so when they go to try to turn their financial assets into tangible assets, and a large number of people do that, that's when you have the cycle work in reverse. And so you have, that's like what a bank run is. And then central banks have got to print money. And so that printing of money reduces the value of money and so on. So I think that pattern and understanding that pattern, is very important. So Bitcoin serves a purpose in a sense of there are not enough of those tangible assets. So now let's take a look at Bitcoin from that lens. Okay, let's go through some of the big points related to Bitcoin. First of all, it's alchemy, right? Mm-hmm. It's alchemy, meaning it's great. What you do is you invent a money that, and you own it all, and then make other people like it, and it becomes a reality, and you get very rich because you own it, and then you have it come out, and it builds a self-reinforcing cycle, and it can become money if it's just a matter of faith in it, and then it operates that way. And then because money doesn't have a reality. Money is it's like the tulip mania or whatever. You can it doesn't have to have intrinsic value. It can have that. So now you're dealing with that quality. It's an alternative gold, basically, or it's an alternative real value asset in a sense, except it's digital. And then that makes it, have its own questions. By the way, I would say another related topic, is the risks of hacking and digitalization.
How many risks are there with Bitcoin? Should they be owning it? So I think this is a really good framework to understand what it is and what it isn't.
The answer to the question, I think, has to be, you probably do not own enough, real money assets, hard money assets relative to financial assets. And Bitcoin is one of those possibilities that has attributes that are attractive, and then it has risks. Like one of the big risks is not allowing it to exist. Okay, in 1694, we had the world's first central bank, really, the Bank of England, And the reason they had the Bank of England was because the central bank, why do you have a central bank? It's because the government wants to control the money within that territory. Every country wants to have a central bank, and it wants to have a monopoly on controlling the money within that country. And that's an issue. And so that's why, by the way, when you saw in the 30s and different times gold outlawed, then you could see Bitcoin outlawed and all of those types of things. But can it stand the time? How does it work? All of those remain questions. So Bitcoin is kind of, it's a chip that one could put on, but think about broader. Don't recognize what type of asset is it, in a sense. It is one of those, it's an alternative gold kind of asset.
Right.
And that's, if you think of it that way, and then start to say, like how much gold do you have and how much Bitcoin do you have? Like I wouldn't want to have the majority of my money in Bitcoin. I wouldn't want to have more money in Bitcoin than I had in gold. Because let's say central banks, for example, the world's money is held by central banks who are dealing between countries. There's the money within countries, which is their currency, but it's controlled within the countries and it's manipulated and so on. And kind of the real money is the money that works across country. And so you almost have to say, what will they hold their reserves in? You almost look at what they're holding their reserves in and those kinds of assets. And history has shown that even periods of greater conflict, there's less credit. And that's why there was a tendency to go to gold or even silver. That's why sterling was the British pound, or China used sterling. So you have to think of it as kind of like one of those and kind of an option on one of those. That may be worthless and it may be important, and it allows you to do certain things, and it has its vulnerabilities.
You talked a lot about inequality, income inequality, about what we need to do as a country. If you were serving in the Biden administration, or if you were advising the administration, is there one policy that you would encourage them to be focused on right now?
Yeah, let me answer that question as I don't care which policies are put into place, as long as they're bipartisan and they're smart enough to increase productivity. Everybody has their own way of wanting to do it, and everybody fights that, oh, you should do this thing. I've got a million of those. I've got a lot of them. But because nobody can agree on anything, that's why I say, if I was President Biden, what I would do is reach to the other side as far to the other side of the Republican Party as I could. I'd bring them into the tent and realize that in order to be president of the United States, you have to get the majority of people, and the fringes go. And I would do something like create a Manhattan Project of smart people from both sides to re-engineer how it works to achieve the goal, that it works well for most people. And then I would then say, those on the left and those on the right who were in that tent, I would then say, now it's your job to bring as many of the other people in it. So I don't care exactly what it is. I have my own views. I think education is a fabulous investment and it's unfair. And so I can go into those things. But I think that the most important thing is that we do it in a bipartisan and smart way so that we can increase the size of the pie as well as divide it well. I'm really worried that everybody right now just thinking, where do you give money? And there's not enough thought to productivity or bipartisanship.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.